Now, on to that other issue that we were discussing earlier in the programme, that of the policing and justice debacle at the Executive and Assembly Review Committee. The man, some tip to be the next Justice Minister, is with us, David Ford of the Alliance Party. I know maybe it's not an accolade which you've accepted yet, nor even a position which looks like it's anywhere near being offered, but where do you see things going at the moment with this?
Well, I notice even you're smiling when you say that, Jim, so I'll interpret it that way. It certainly seems that the deal that the DUP and Sinn Féin had back in the summer is now unravelling somewhat. It's symptomatic of the whole way they've handled this issue, that there seems to be a certain measure of not quite agreeing things, depending upon goodwill to carry things through, and then goodwill suddenly becomes lacking on one side or the other.
We'll just have to battle through the division bells, but it seems to be all coming down to the interpretation of what this phrase "at all times" means, with Sinn Féin saying "at all times" doesn't mean for all time, and the DUP interpreting it as saying, well, look, it is what it says.
Well, certainly, it was my understanding, insofar as that amounted to anything in the summertime, as I read that statement along with other people, that it did seem to mean that at all times the minister would be elected on some sort of cross-community basis in the Assembly and treated, as the current Westminster legislation states, outside the normal procedure for appointing other ministers.
And of course that is why speculation grew that it may be a position that be offered to the Alliance Party, given that getting both sides to agree on someone would probably narrow it down to, well, someone like yourself or someone from your party. Do you think we're now further away from any position like that being on offer?
Well, the issue is not whether the job is to be offered to a member of the Alliance Party or anybody else. The issue is, do we have the stability? Can we ensure that the devolution of justice is handled in a way which ensures that critically important issues around policing and justice can be dealt with, regardless of the kind of difficulties which may or may not crop up from time to time? Look at what's happening to the future of primary school children in the education debacle at the moment. Now, that is pretty awful. But imagine if something as sensitive as justice was being subjected to that kind of problem. And that's completely irrelevant as to who the minister may be. We need structures which ensure that justice is delivered for the people of Northern Ireland. That's absolutely crucial.
There have been some reports that as one way to move the gridlock forward, Sinn Féin and the DUP might publicly seek to have you or another member of the party in as a sort of a justice minister designate. Has there been any approach of that kind, so far as you know, to the Alliance Party?
As in most other things, Mark, there seems to be a lot of talking about us and very little talking to us. There has been no approach on that at all. And
so far as the actual Assembly Executive and Review Committee is concerned, there were some moves towards having you brought onto that committee because Alliance isn't a member, but you're unhappy, really, with how that's been handled thus far. What's the problem?
Well, a fortnight ago, I gather it was discussed in the committee, a proposal that there should be an Alliance representative on that committee. And indeed, it's a point I made, and I've got the notes of what I said back in May last year when the committees were set up, that it's completely illogical that a committee set up to review the Assembly and Executive doesn't have a single member who's not part of the executive parties. There is a role for opposition, and surely a scrutiny committee looking at the way the executive and the Assembly function needs an opposition voice. We made that point, we made it strongly, we were ignored. We also made it clear that we were prepared to give up a seat on another committee if there was a matter of swapping something around. We're not seeking to get more than our share, but we do believe that this is a committee we have a particular role to contribute to. That seemed to be happening from what I was told from the committee a couple of weeks ago. Then last week it was downgraded to some sort of vague, non-specific offer to allow observers to go in who wouldn't be allowed to speak, wouldn't really be allowed to participate properly, but who would have some vague role of access to the papers and sit at the table while not saying anything. That really didn't seem to us to be treating our position with respect. I think there are a lot of people, including people on that committee, who talk a great deal about equality and respect, who wouldn't expect to be treated that way themselves, and we don't expect to be treated that way either.
So you declined the offer, basically?
We made it clear that we saw those problems arising. Now, it's sufficiently unclear exactly what was being offered that we have outlined the problems in a letter I wrote back to the chair of the committee, and we wait to see whether the committee comes back to us to make any different suggestions.
Now, you've said it's strange that the party that represents the opposition isn't on the committee which examines the operation of the executive, but the very reason for inviting you onto that committee in any capacity seems to be to get you into the executive. Do you not think...
Yes, but the whole point of that committee is far wider than just the issue of devolving justice. There's all kinds of issues about the way the executive functions, the way the Assembly functions, the sort of rules and standing orders we have. I mean, there's a huge issue there which needs needs to be addressed, and that is where there is a role for the opposition party to be involved. It's not just a matter. And that was a particularly worrying addition, that it seemed to be they were only interested in talking to us about the devolution of justice. They were not recognising that we had any role to look at the wider remit of the committee.
Indeed, but while we look at that issue, and we're looking at the disagreements between the DUP and Sinn Féin at the moment, but, were an offer to come to alliance, surely there must be some considerable debate within your own party as to the merits of opting for that post.
Well, the simple answer is there is no offer. There is no understanding. We have made clear some of the concerns that we have as to how justice might be devolved, and the need to ensure that we have a workable system, the need to see improvements in the executive, the need to ensure the Justice Department can function, the need that we get some assurances on the budget that will transfer from Westminster, the need that we must ensure what's going to happen on things like police manpower, when it's absolutely clear we haven't yet moved to the situation that Patton envisaged of a completely normal, peaceful society. All those issues are still up in the air, and we believe they're very serious issues about the devolution of justice. And again, they apply regardless of who the minister might be. Now, we have made points about that. Indeed, in my conference speech back in September, I talked about issues like that. But nobody seems to be interested to discuss the issues of substance. All we get is this continual speculation as to who might or might not get the job. I'm not interested in seeing any member of the Alliance Party doing a job which cannot be done properly. I'm interested in getting stability for the people of Northern Ireland.
David Ford, many thanks indeed.
Thank you.